I usually don't, actually I've never really given any kind of speech like about Lake Murray in front of anything but a pretty small group. It's not really what I do. I guess now I'm doing it though. 2010 I started exploring Lake Murray. I was very curious in the history, and it's been almost 14 years now. I've got hard drives and everything full of pictures, videos, everything. So I had to spend almost 2 full days figuring out how I was going to do this, what I'm going to, subjects I'm going to pick and all that. So hopefully you'll enjoy and learn a little something from this presentation. I want to thank Tony and Kim who got me here. Sorry it took so long. All right, so there's Lake Murray. We all know Lake Murray. It's a beautiful lake. Pretty much filled up 1930. You can see the dam here. Yeah.
A little bit louder.
Okay, I'll try and talk.
All right.
As long as the voice will hold up. So there's Lake Murray. So on the history. So a little disclaimer, like I was saying, I don't usually do this. I'm not a historian or archaeologist. I'm just a hobbyist. I'm just sharing with you what I've learned. There may be some incorrect things, maybe pronounce things wrong, something like that. One thing I've learned about the history around here, going back to 1670 when settlers first came and settled in South Carolina, was some stuff was written down, but a lot of stuff was handed down over time by a voice. So it's changed a lot, stories have changed, especially when it comes to what's beneath Lake Murray. So if you know a story, if I tell you something that's different, then please let me know, because I'm always wanting to learn. It's just personal about me. I moved here in 2009. I have no ties to any of the family names, anything from here. So I think that's a lot what really spurred my interest, was a lot of the names like the Wingards and the Raws and so forth, the Younger and Long, all these families that descended way back from the 1700s, and there's still families here today, descendants. So and everything that involves the families that live in the Scuba River Valley, Dutch Fork, all that. That really spurred my interest. I have no ties to any of that at all. I grew up in Miami, Florida, is where I hail from, and I started diving as a younger lad, a little bit younger because I'm not going to give my age. But I've been diving for a long time, probably close to about 30 years. So I've always been in the water, especially growing up in South Florida. Like I said, I started exploring the lake in 2010, moved here in 2009. Really, it kind of started for me was I found a group that would dive over at the dam on Sundays. Mixed group from all over different dive shops, and I would dive with them, and they're like, oh hey look, there's some railroad tracks, hey there's a trestle, and it just blew me away. I was like, oh wow, what's all this? I really want to learn what's underneath there. And I heard all these stories, and I didn't know if the stories were true. Like, there was houses, there was trains, there was this. I was like, oh, I want to find out. So that's kind of really what got the fire ignited. So this is the Ed Fettner map. This is one of the most beneficial things that I've used in my search. I've used a lot of different maps. I've probably spent more time reading and searching into history than actual diving. Diving is probably the least that I've done. I spent a lot of time on the lake, going back and forth, looking at a screen, trying to figure out what that is. If I want to dive it, if I think it is what I think I see it is, and I'll show you some scans coming up. But this map, I think Ed Fettner, he's no longer alive, but he was probably one of the most influential people in naming a lot of the islands, Wessinger Count, even Bomb Island used to be Lunch Island, just a lot of history. He knew a lot, and he tried to put as much down as he could before the lake. This map is back there. If you can ever find a copy of it, it's a really great map, historical. There is some inaccuracies, I'll kind of point those out as we go along here, but for the most part, he knew where everything was and knew a lot of the history and got it on this map, and that's really one of the main things that helped me find a lot of the stuff. This another group that has really helped me, I work with a lot, is the Greater Dutch Fork and South Carolina group. They're headquartered out of the Little Mountain Library. Sue Pollard Easley is, if anybody knows her, she's been a tremendous help for me. I've worked with them a lot. They've worked with SEG, SCANA, and then now Dominion to get a lot of the resources, a lot of the original maps, they do a lot in the genealogy sector, and they share that with me, and we work together and help find some spots. And then I report back to them, and so forth. I don't know if anybody knows Randall Sheely. He does a presentation. I haven't seen him in a couple of years, so hopefully he's doing okay. But he gives a presentation that's absolutely amazing. He has some of the most amazing pictures and artifacts that I've ever seen. He's collected over the last 40, 50 years. He was beneficial too to helping me learn a lot and where to search, where to look, and what to find. So, and then of course, so around 2010, the story goes, this young man and his wife wanted to start a dive shop. And I happened to meet him. I happened to be the first customer. And we hit it off. He's a little younger than me, about 10 years. We hit it off. He became my partner in crime in this. We decided we wanted to become tech divers. We did that. We explored the lake, everything. That's this dapper young man right here. This will probably be the only time you'll ever see him in any kind of suit or that's John Baker. He's been my partner in crime in a lot of this. Very thankful for him and Amanda for all the years and all their help. So, all right, let's get into it. So the Saluda River Valley, that's what we're going to call it. I know it gets into a lot of names, Dutch Fork, South Goth, all that. We're just going to, the area we're going to focus on, I'll show it to you here. Sorry. Well, I guess the laser pointer won't work. Anyway, so Bear Creek is right here. Kind of tonight's is focused in everything east of Bear Creek. So when I say Saluda River Valley, a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about is right in here. So just to generalize it, Saluda River Valley, I'll reference it as that. Even though it might be considered Dutch Fork on the north side, south, anyway. That way the historians don't jump on me over it. Trust me, people do get pretty touchy if you don't pronounce stuff correctly. So, all right, let's go back in time a little bit to the early 1700s, so we can kind of understand how everything was started here and what the history is that we're going to look at and try and find. In 1730, the first survey was done of the Cherokee Trail. So, if you know Old Cherokee Road, that's actually the Cherokee Trail, the Indian Trail for hundreds of years, big trading route all up through South Carolina over to Georgia and the Appalachians. The early settlers first came, and the first settler, General George Hunter, mapped it out because all the immigrants were starting to come over from Europe. The king was offering land grants and saying, hey, you got this great land in South Carolina. It's got rivers, it's got grass, great barbecue. You guys can head on over. They went and they started mapping it all out. Then, kind of in the 1730s, after it's mapped out to the 1750s, Indian traders came over. They traded with the Cherokee, a couple other Native American tribes. Then, around 1750 is when the land grants were starting to be issued from the king, and settlers started migrating and settling in this area, in the Saluda River Valley. They came into Charlestown, which was called Charlestown. That's where the first settlers arrived, and later became Charleston. But the actual place was Charlestown. There were people that came over in 1670, but as far as this area is concerned, it really wasn't, the land wasn't really settled until like around late 40s. There were a few small trappers and traders and stuff like that, but as far as families coming over and settling and getting land grants, it was around 1750. So they started coming over. And then also settlers came down from the other colonies up north. On the wagon road came down, which it kind of went through the Appalachians, but there was part of another spin-off that came down here to South Carolina. So you had families that with name like Turner was actually a big prominent family. We'll talk about that soon, but they were actually from Maryland, so they came down and settled down here. So there was a lot of people from that area as well. So the land grants, so when you would come over, kind of how it worked, if you came over, they would say, okay, per head of person in your household, you get 50 acres. So when I show you the map, you'll see whole numbers of acres, and that's how it was. It kind of depended when you came. The first settlers that came in the 1670 on the first boat, they got, I think it was 150 acres per head, and then after that it was 50 acres a head, and then later on, before the Revolution, it was back up to, it kind of varied how old you were and stuff like that. So I just wanted, this is here because the Cherokee Road. So if you see the old Cherokee Road, cuts through the lake. This is Shoal Island here. Over here is Beach Creek, so south part of the lake, Lexington. So as a diver, what's interesting about Old Cherokee Road, you can still see for the most part of it on sonar roads, because the roads were kind of indented from travel. In fact, even if you go on Old Beach Creek, part of Old Beach Creek here where it was the Old Cherokee, you can still kind of look and see how where the land's not developed, it's raised up. That's where the old trail was. But this right here, I know Hallmark Island, this runs, I've dove over here looking for this school, or the school remnants. There's not really anything. But you know, you could go as a diver, it's pretty shallow, 20 foot or something, and you could search along the old road. You could probably find old arrowheads, you could probably find artifacts like that. I mean, they're still there. This was a road that was used by Indians for hundreds of years, so that's kind of unique. It gets a little deeper out here, it cuts over Shoal Island, goes up over there by Bear Creek. So that's kind of unique as a diver. You can dive old roads still in Lake Murray. They're there. And River Road is another big one. We'll talk about that. I've dove that and found some artifacts there as well. So this is one of the original plats. So when I talk to you about the acreage, so you can see the name. It says the year. So 50 acres, 1750. I know it's hard to see in the back, but if you can see the colors. So the pink is the surveys, 1749 to 1760. So that's kind of what we're focusing on this first segment here, and then up to the Revolution, and then after the Revolution. This is the Wise Ferry Bridge. Baum Island is right in here. This is looking westbound. So you can see all these initial settlers. They're all around 1750, 1751, 49. So you can see how they all kind of settled right there on the Saluda River. And then as time went on, they expanded. That's how it kind of settled all through up the valley, up into Newberry. And then in 1758, 1761 was known as the Native Americans Uprising. The Cherokee Indians were pretty much not happy with, at the time we were still British, we hadn't done our revolution yet. They were not happy with the British and the settlers who moved in here, so they would attack. They would raid. Now, to understand how it wasn't like homes and right next to each like, hey neighbor, it was you had 100 acres or 150 acres or whatever you had your house, and then your neighbor was another 100 and 150 acres over. It was very spread out. So you had, and the Indians would come in tribes and they would attack, they would burn your house down. A lot of the earlier settlers were killed, steal your livestock, so forth. And this went on until 1761. So they built forts. This is what we're getting at. They built forts to protect during the raids. One significant fort that the British had built, and don't worry if you don't read this, this is back there, I just have this here to kind of point out, was Fort Fairchild. Fort Fairchild is under Lake Murray. Fort Fairchild was on the Saluda River bank on the north side by where the Wise Ferry Bridge is. So it just talks, this just basically talks that it was built by Thomas Fairchild. It served as a British stronghold during the Native American uprisings of the 1750s. So they built this three-sided fort there to protect the people around it, also for trade, and also against the Indian attacks. And then it was destroyed in the Revolution as far as the fort itself. So Fort Fairchild was built in 1750 by Thomas Fairchild, the British fort. So they supplied the funding for it, they supplied the weaponry, they supplied the British soldiers if there were some there. It was a three-sided wooden fort, and it had a small fixed cannon. I don't know the size of the cannon, but it had a cannon. It was kind of designed for, there's not a whole lot of information, but what I have read and have learned, and this is where a lot has come down through stories over the years, is that if you figure kind of like almost a U, three sides, the entrance was here, the cannon was right here at the entrance, and that was where you fought everybody in the entrance, because you had these big walls and they would attack at the entrance. Kind of like 96 fort up in northern South Carolina. That's how that's built. It was not that big, I don't think. It was a much smaller fort, more like a post. But anyway, the cannon was there. The cannon was tried to rescue by Bachman Lindler in 1929 as the water started to rise on the Sluda River with the lake. His mule got stuck, he couldn't get it, so the cannon's still there. Here's where it is, Fort Fairchild. Here's the Wise Ferry Bridge, here's the Saluda River. This is the Spence Islands right here. So when I said earlier some errors, he says the stone trading post is here. That threw me off for 2 years because I looked all over there for that damn stone trading house. But it paid off because I found some other stuff. Stone trading post is over by the tower. We'll get to that in a little bit. But that's where Fort Fairchild is. All right, so this is a sonar scan of what I believe is Fort Fairchild. So to understand the scan, this is the dividing line. For those of you who aren't familiar, this is a side scan, and this is a down scan. There's a forest there, a whole forest. That's why there's a lot of, this is all trees. This is the bottom. This is about a 20 to 25 foot, I don't even know what to call it, an artillery bunker. This is where I believe, and if you understand the sonar, there's a very, very defined solid object there, likely of metal on the top. I believe that this is the cannon, in my opinion. If this was the cannon turret, this would have been the front of the fort facing the Saluda River. It's very large. As you can see, there's a lot of trees there. Here's another scan. This is a scan with a Tobel recording side scan sonar, an earlier generation, but this is it over here. So you can see how large it is, and you can see how the ground is matter. So in my opinion, everything that it's in the perfect location. It defines a lot of what I read. So I believe that that's it, and that the cannon that couldn't get rescued is right there. Here's flipped over the same scan so you can understand it better. This is the bottom. This object right here that's very defined. The way sonar works is it's kind of like radar. It will send out the sonar signal. It'll go through some stuff like real soft, silt, stuff like that. But anything hard, it gives a really hard return back. And you get hard returns like that, and it's a lot whiter. Dark is a shadow. So the object is long, cylindrical, and that's the shadow that it's presenting. So I've spent a lot of time looking at sonar, so if you can trust my opinion. So you're like, hey, so you should know on it, you got a cannon, right, in your backyard. Well, no, I don't. Because John and I tried to dive on it, and this is from one of the dives. I think we tried twice. It's a forest. It's down in a forest, about 140 feet deep. So this is one of the dives. I'm following John down. We dropped an anchor line on it, snaked its way down through the trees, and we tried to get down there. So you'll see here, we'll start getting into tree branches and everything else. Viz is only about 5 or 6 feet, it's very murky. So we had hit one tree branch at 70 feet, and we weren't expecting that. We thought it was clear. So that kind of threw us off, so we continued down. He's in front of me. It's got, and we have done, this was probably 2015, 2016, I think. We were still in the throes of our technical training, all that, so that's why. So we start hitting the more of the branches. Now the rope caught up in the branch. So it's obvious that this is a very hazardous situation. Well, I don't, it's like trying to swim down through a tree. It's not like Jocassee where it's fun and you can see and all that. Obviously you can see how hazardous it is. So eventually we get to the point where like, you just can't do this. I think it was around 120 feet. We weren't very far, but even if you get down there, you're among trees, you touch anything, it's gonna silt out. You're not gonna see anything anyway, and it's just too dangerous. So this is why I don't have a canyon in my backyard. But I'm alive to tell you about it. Tree one. All right, so that was Fort Fairchild. So will we ever know if that's actually the canyon and that's the fort? I doubt it. We had access to an ROV. Same problem. We sent an ROV down through trees. It gets stuck. Who has to go get it? The diver. Maybe we could do a drop camera on the line. I don't know. Honestly, I'll probably never go anywhere more with it, but I feel confident that's it, and we'll leave it at that. The mystery will remain, I guess. So now we have the other settlers would build their own forts. This is an excerpt from the Colonial Forts South Carolina book, which just says smaller forts were built by the settlers as refuges for the scattered inhabitants. Scattered inhabitants, what does that mean? That means, you know, my neighbor lives quarter mile, half a mile over there, and then his neighbor's another mile. So somebody would build a fort, or you would fortify your own home from these Indian attacks, the Cherokee Indians. And they were spread all out through here, the Saluda River Valley. And I never knew this until I discovered one. And I discovered it up over, so this is kind of hard to translate to a true map to actually figure out, because it's just, you know, acreage and nothing's super detailed, but, you know, we know Bomb Island is right in here, and it's somewhere over in this area. I don't know exactly whose property it's on, but I believe, in my opinion, it's on the Turner property, because Turner also had family out in Newberry and was part of 96 Fort, had their own fort. They built the Turner Fort, which is up by Silverton. It's in Newberry. There's an old Turner Fort that's there. So personally, I believe it's in my cohorts at Dutch Fork, believe it might be there also. So this is it. So it's in about 25 feet of water. It's in 3 sections. Now remember, this is from the 1700s, prior to the Revolutionary War. So if they knocked part of it down, I believe it might have been something like the old stone house built up into a small fortified they could run into, hide while the Indians attacked. Okay, we're safe. And they had these, so like if you lived in Tornado Alley, you build a tornado shelter. If you lived in where the Indians attacked you, you build an Indian shelter, Indian attack shelter. So, sorry if the pictures aren't the best, got a video coming, it'll show it better. But this is a wall, a long wall at the bottom there. As you can see, a portion section of the wall, and it's all built with old fieldstones rocks. It's not brick or anything like that, so it's definitely equals the time of when the other stone houses were built, which is around 1700s, probably later than that, 1750s. So here's just a short video swimming by it. So this is kind of still work in progress. I'm still working with people I work with at the Dutch Fort. There's no documented anything of any house there in that area or anything, so it's kind of hard to really determine who even lived there, who built this. But they've kind of the ones that put on that it would probably be a fort, so a private fort, not a British fort, but by a private citizen. It's full. There's a full debris field. See, it's broken down in a lot of places, but there is a pretty big section. I think it's about 20 feet long, about 3.5 feet high, probably about 2 feet wide. So that's the fort. So that's forts. That's the Revolutionary period, below Lake Murray. Now let's jump forward about 100 years or so and get into the Civil War. So Civil War here in South Carolina is a big thing. As far as Lake Murray and the Saluda River Valley, is there Civil War history underneath there? I don't really know. It's not something that I've studied. I don't think there's any major battles, anything like that. I was not something that I've been actively kind of searching out. I've been more interested in the home sites, cemetery, stuff like that. But when someone found a cannonball in Lake Murray, it drew my interest. So just to rehash real quick, Sherman's march up to go burn up Columbia, he came from the south there. He crossed over to Columbia by the riverbank zoo there. But there was a regiment or two that did not go into Columbia. They stayed out of Columbia. You can see that this General Slocum, he stayed to the west of Columbia. He likely camped there for a couple days while Sherman did his thing and burned things down, and then they continued onward. It is believed, and this isn't just my belief, this is what I was told and how I got in, that they camped off of Bush River Road right up there by Susie Ebert Island, right where that circle's at. This was a major road back then that went right into Columbia. It joined River Road and went into Columbia. So it kind of makes sense. If he needed to resupply Sherman, he could easily do it. This is a little bit closer look. So this is Susie Ebert Island here, and this little peninsula here is the Lake Murray Power Squadron. The cannonball was found right here, and I've been told that they camped in this area here. This was where the old road here, Bush River Road, used to go. It's now Johnson Marina Road. There's the cannonball. So it's legit. They blew it up because they weren't sure. There's a picture of when it was found before. Now these aren't my pictures. This is from the lady that found it, 2019. I didn't know her, I just got the pictures from the internet. And that immediately spurred my interest, and I was like, oh, I gotta go find something. So for divers aspect, this is a navigation chart here. And this kind of helps me believe the claim that they did. So the road came up through here, right up here and up here. And the cannonball was found right here. So this is very kind of a gradual sloping. Would be a good area to camp back then. It's real shallow out here. This, I believe, was an old pond based on the bathymetric data there, on how it kind of sinks in. You had a creek that ran through here, a creek that ran through here. So it's plausible. So if you're a diver, you know, this would be a good area to check out. Look for artifacts. Bring a magnometer or a metal detector. I did. I kind of searched over here. I dove, searched over here. I had a little cheapy Chinese metal detector that kind of just vibrates and beeps. I found a few things I'll show you. No cannonballs. If you do dive here, I do want to say though, this is a very used thoroughfare. Liberty on the Lake is up here, and a lot of boats come through here to avoid having to go around here. In fact, that's a highly prone accident point. I think it was just even a couple of years ago, there was a boat that got ran over and the guy died, unfortunately. But there have been a lot of boat accidents in there, especially at night. So if you do dive, definitely, I wouldn't do it on the weekend in the summer. So I dove there. This is what I found, except for that. This I found at Winger. So I was like, well, it's not a cannonball. I don't think they had adjustable wrenches in the Civil War. Unfortunately, I think this is from one of the boat accidents. The tools fell out of the boat. There was even a boat that got hit and drifted a little and sunk, but it was recovered. So that's what I found. I actually, for fun, did electrolysis on this for a couple months, and it became usable. All the rust came off and it became usable. Yeah, Craftsman. All right, so now moving along. That's a little bit of Civil War history, if there is any there. The home sites. So there's. If you look east of the Mississippi, most states, Kentucky, Tennessee, especially Tennessee, Georgia's big, South Carolina, all have man-made lakes. All have lakes that were once towns underneath, and there's all kinds of rumors. Oh, you know, Grandma didn't want to leave her house until the waters were coming up in, and then she walked on and stepped on the boat, and that house is still there. It's okay, maybe. I have yet to see any full houses except up in Jocassee. That's only because they got a restraining order on the power company. The power company legally couldn't do anything before the lake flooded. And really, I've even read a full book on Georgia. There's a lot of rumors, but there's only one house in Lake Lanier, a concrete house that still stands there. As far as Murray, the Saluda River Valley, probably 99% of the homes were wood. And a lot of the homes would be within the 20 to at most 30-foot deep range. So if a house was left, it would probably be sticking out. I doubt it would even last this long because it would. But the other thing too is to consider in 1929, this wasn't a land of everybody's rich and has all kinds of money and they're paying us $1 million for our new lakefront home. We're going to leave and go build a new mansion. No. There was a lot of poverty. What they had was what they had. So they tore down a lot of the homes and brought everything with them and rebuilt the home somewhere else or built a new home. Really all that's left is what the foundation was. Some bricks from the chimney. They had to knock the chimney down. So there's not any standing homes in Lake Murray except for the stone house, which is a whole unique story on its own because that was part of the Ford Revolutionary. But as far as home sites, as far as I know, and I'll be happy if you correct me if I'm wrong, there's no standing homes. There's no church steeples either. That was put there by the boat operator. Today everybody looked as church steeples sticking out. If you know what I'm talking about from a few years ago. All right, so Job F. Wingard. He was one of the probably, this is probably one of my favorite sites to dive. Because every time I dive, I find something new. There's a lot of artifacts there. There's a lot to see. It's just very exciting. And it's shallow. It starts around, depending on lake level, it can be 13 feet. It could go down to about 30, depending on where you get around it. This is the house that was there. That's Job and his wife and his kids. I think this was his second wife, so that's why he's old as heck looking and the kids are young. So. Anyway, so this is the house. It sat on foundation bricks. There's two chimneys. I'll show a better picture here so you can understand. So just a little bit about Joe. He didn't get to see the lake. He died in 1915, but he's under the lake in the Wingard Cemetery, so he's part of it still. So he was one of the most highly esteemed citizens around here. He fought the Civil War for Lexington, and like I said, he's buried under the lake in the Wingard Cemetery. So where's his house? So this is Baum Island. You can see that it's up here. This is River Road. So River Road is like Sunset Boulevard of its time. That was how you got everywhere. You got on your buggy or on your horse and you went down, and then you'd get off these little roads. These dashes are just little trail roads. It was all dirt, obviously. But he lived right on the house. Kind of shows it off of it, but the house is actually literally right on the road. You can see it on the side scan. So this is a better picture of this house. So you can see the bricks because the bricks are all still there. The house was dismantled and taken away. The fence is gone, and they cut all the trees. So what's there? Well, there's a well there. There's actually two wells. This is one of the wells that was left. I believe that this well was not in use at the time that the lake was flooded because it's closed off on the bottom. And then there's another more modern well, the kind that you would have a pump, which is where you dig in, put a pipe in, have a pump is nearby. And I think that was at the time in 1929, the well that they used, and they just left there. That is the bottom of the well. A lot of fish there. You can see it's all closed in. There's no like deep hole you can look down into like that. But it is a home for fish. This is the other well. It's basically a pipe and they just enclosed it. I think probably there was a wooden structure or something around it, and probably with a pump and all that, but this is what's left there today. This is where the old home site was. It's just hundreds and hundreds of bricks. Now, this was in the summertime, so they're covered with algae. It's not that they're all deformed, it's just the algae that's on them. It's very shallow, like I said. Sunlight penetrates pretty easily. So you're going to get a lot of algae growth. Just bricks everywhere. Here's one of the bricks. And if you clean it off, you can see the bricks are back there. You can see them. Feel free to pick them up and look at them. So these bricks are kind of special too. Oh, I'll get to that. There's a big tree there that was there. It's been cut. It shows you there's a lot of fish life. So this is when I found the doorknob, which is back there. Feel free to pick it up and look at it. This is just a clip from a video. It's kind of exciting. You can see some of the bricks. So there's my cheapy Chinese metal detector, but it works good. So this is a carpenter's nail. These things are everywhere out there. Like, you don't even need a metal detector. If you know where to look, you can kind of fan and find them. I assume when they took the house apart, they just threw the nails on the ground and left them there. They do not survive out of water. You take them out of water, they just kind of break apart and crumble. I'm surprised they even lasted this long in this higher oxygen content. But they're there, and there's a lot of other stuff there. It's a fun place to go look and just check out. So this is Lynn Winder. In 1990, they lowered the lake to work on the dam. I think at least 20 feet. I'm not sure. So she went out and got some of her, she's an ancestor of Joe and the family Winder, obviously. So she went out there and collected some bricks to bring back to her family. You can see Wessinger Island in the background. Oh, another thing I'll point out, I was going to say earlier. So River Road runs right over Wessinger Island on the more southern part. If you ever go out there and get off the beach and walk up onto the island, you can see where the old road is. You can actually walk the old road. Now there's some trees and all that. It's pretty obvious, and I've done it. I've taken, I probably don't remember doing it. I took you out there one day. We walked the road, and I talked about how the wagons used to come through here. And it was fun. So if you ever get out there, check it out. If you're a metal detector, it's probably be a good place. You'll probably find stuff. Probably even find arrowheads out there. Same 1990. I assume they're descendants of the Winders, and they have their bricks. That little girl's probably 30-something years old now, and she still has the brick. That makes me feel 1990. Yeah. So the bricks were local. I find these bricks all over the lake. I found them in some of the cemetery areas. I found them where other home sites have been. Not significant like the Wingard house, but you can tell they're bricks. And they come from the Guggenart, if I say that correctly, which is down in Casey. This is now a historical site, registered historical site, however you call it. But that's where they came from, which is kind of interesting. The mud is from the banks of the Congaree. Make the brick, build the house, and find it in the lake. It's kind of, stuff like that I find is fascinating to me. One big complete circle. All right, the next home site was kind of owned by two people. I don't know if the homes were in the exact same place. Again, these were wooden homes on top of huge stones. So, it's not like the home was, he bought the home, could have built it next to it after. But the first is Henry Libran. He died in 1837. I'm not sure when he built the house. And the Derrick home, I'm not sure when he built it there, but obviously it was removed 1929 for the lake. This is over here. This is going up Bear Creek. So Shoal Island would be kind of right in here. It was up in this area, and I'll show you a better picture. The map doesn't really kind of do as good a job as the topography there. This is the Derrick home. This is the home that was there when before the lake, it was removed before the lake was built. So this is and I'm not sure which Derrick, because there's two brothers. The history, I haven't been able to really figure out which one. As you can see, it's a wooden home. It's on. So when you're doing the side scan sonar, you look for, as I call it, what God doesn't create. God doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't create symmetry or certain right angles, stuff like that. Of course he does, but you can see here perfectly symmetric stones. That's where the house was. If you're looking out 65 left, it's only 16 feet. That gives you 50 feet. So you're looking at probably, 30 feet. So that 30 by 40, that's a home site for sure. A lot of people would go by and wouldn't even really think it's stumps or something. Here's a stump, 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 stump. I dove a lot of stumps before I finally found the first home site. But that's kind of what, here's a little better view flipped over. So that's kind of what I look for. Now, I'm not just randomly finding it. I did my research. I kind of knew where to look. I followed the maps. But still, you look at a map and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I can find that. You get out in the lake and there's this big lake and you're like, wow, where do I start? You know, so usually I try and start with a known object on the shore, if I'm close to the shore, or a depth, or some sort of starting point and work from there. And trust me, I spent a lot of hours working, not finding anything, and then I'll go back out and randomly go over something like, damn, there it is. That was easy. So here's a video diving. I've only dove this site once. I found it. It was kind of in a time when I was just trying to find everything. I was like, oh, I found this. So I only dove it once. I haven't really explored the whole site yet. I've been meaning to get back. You can see they've probably been toppled over or something, but this is an area where there's no boulders. It's all flat, so it's not like, oh, they could just be a coincidence. And I just kind of follow a line and go to each one. You can see a couple of them here. And really, this is the history, what's left of the home sites. I mean, this is Granny's old house. It's not standing like you thought the story was. So, for some, it might be a little anticlimactic. For me, I look at it as like, wow, this is kind of cool. This is where somebody's home was, where kids were raised. You know, life happened, and now here I'm getting a glimpse of what's left. And I'm sure in this site you can find all kinds of little artifacts. The big thing would be to find where the trash area was. You know, all the old bottles, stuff like that. All right, so moving on. So yeah, this is there. So there's a lot of other history in this area too. So the X is the home site. So this is the Amex Ferry Road. This is Bear Creek coming up here. This is the main lake, Shoal Islands down here, kind of give you some perspective. So the X is where the house is. The cross is where the Libran Cemetery is. And then the circle is where the Libran Church was in the 1800s. That circle, as you can see, it's not developed. You're like, wow, somebody must want to sell it for a lot of money. No, it's actually owned by Dominion. That's Dominion property, and the church ruins are on that land. I have not been on there yet. I tried to go on once. I think it was low, and I couldn't. I think I had to walk in some mud, and I didn't want to do it in the middle of winter. But that's Dominion property. Just like most of the property, you should be fine if you wanted to go check that out. The property line exists over here, so I think as long as you stay where the woods are, if you're that curious to see if you can find the old church ruins, and then the cemetery, we'll get to that. So the cemetery, so it talks to the church there was from 1821 to 1870, and then they abandoned the church. And the church just kind of in disrepair. I believe it was an old wooden church on concrete or stone foundation, and eventually probably was just dilapidated and fell apart. So the ruins are on the land. Like I said, I haven't been on yet. I don't know what we'll be able to find. Probably best to go in the winter when a lot of the vegetation is down. For the cemetery, though, there's 15 graves. It's outlined by rocks. It's kind of on a sloping hill. There's only one grave marked, that's George Libran. And then there's 14 marked by fieldstone. So what that tells you is they didn't have a lot of money, they didn't have money to go out and have nice headstones made like some of the other cemeteries. You'll see there is a little bit closer look. Home sites over in this area, and then the cemetery is down in here, and the church obviously would be where the trees are. This is the cemetery on side scan sonar. So you can see its outline. That's how I found it. That's what I was looking for. As soon as I saw it, I knew, hey, that's not natural. This is just the names of the people that are buried there. George Libran, he's the only one with marked headstones, and the rest were marked by fieldstones. So here's a little dive on it. I didn't go and try and inspect every stone and try and find the one that was marked. I just kind of go around, just be respectful, just document. Some of these older stones too, especially in the poorer communities, were the old river shale, and they've long since wiped off any type of name that was written on it. So even if I did find something, it may not, it may just be a stone. But we'll let this play for a minute. You can see, I think in some aspects, some may have taken the time to cut out a stone. There's some stones I find here that look like they maybe have been shaped, I don't know. So these here that you're looking at are field stones, and then I'll swim into where the stones marking the area are, which are here. Those are them. And then this stone, I thought, yeah, it kind of has that, you know, headstone looking shape. I don't know. Anyway, as you can see, this is shallow. I think it's 16, 17 feet. In summertime, all the vegetation. There's the stones that outline it. And all the algae. All right, so that was the Lyburn Cemetery. Now there's kind of a shared cemetery, the Lyburn and Roch Family Cemetery, which is up Bear Creek from there. So we were down here. Main Lake down here. This is Bear Creek that comes up here. And it's up right in here. The Lyburn Roch, if I say that correctly, cemetery. This is it here. It's right in this area here. So this is 2004 when they lowered the lake, and I believe this is 2019. These are Google Earth images. So it kind of shows you the differences of when they lowered the lake. And I believe that's more than 10 foot because I think they were working on the dam. I think that's around 15 foot there low from 358. And this is the normal pool, 358. This is a 10 foot low. So this is someone went out, took this picture. So this is what I'm saying it correctly, what is a river shale rock. So you can see how at one time this is probably a nice rock. They probably carved into it, and now it's just deteriorated. This is one of the, if you're lucky to find the headstones like the other one, kind of cemetery, but it's there. I went out in 2019 when they lowered the lake 10 feet to try and find it. So this was exposed, and I believe it was in this area here. Is where that picture was taken from. My little boat there. This is where I believe it was. I did dive. The visibility was terrible. It wasn't even worth showing the video because you're not going to see anything anyway. I found some stones. I thought, hey, that might be it. I don't know. But that's where it's at. All right, now the Soult Family Cemetery. Soult Family Cemetery is located off Dreher Island State Park. You can almost, actually, I think some people have done a beach dive to it. It's just located, so this is where the new cabins are, near Dreher Island that they built. And then this, I think, is the day use stuff close to the shore there. So it's kind of right off this point. I think it's in about like 16, 17 foot of water at normal pool. This is it here. This was taken when the lake was down, I think in the same time, for 2004 or 5 when the lake was down for maintenance. I've never seen these. I think they were probably taken away. One thing that has happened in a lot of the cemeteries when they have headstones like this is they're pushed down by other people because they're considered a hazard. Some people take it upon themselves to do that over the years. So you'll see that coming up in the Mount Pleasant Cemetery. They pushed everything down, and boats can't really get through there anyway. So I don't know why they did it. This is another picture of it. This was just a small family plot sold to family. I think there's 6 or 7. I think 5 or 6 are marked, and I think there's 1 or 2 unmarked. So you can see this is the drain. This is the cove that was in the, and this is the point right here. So you can see it's not very far. It's on a hill, so if you dive it, you just kind of dip down in a little deeper water and come up. But you know, in the summertime, that's a busy area as well. So if you're going to shore dive it, I would do it during the week. Make sure you have a dive bar. All right, so Mount Pleasant Cemetery. So Mount Pleasant Cemetery is one of the most, what I call, ornate cemeteries out there. I think it was, some of the headstones are very ornate. It seems like it'd be more modern. It wasn't just, you know, a simple headstone with the inscription. It was definitely from more affluent family who could spend more money. A lot of the deceased buried there. It's located, this is Rawls Point, if you're all familiar. It's located right here. So, it's in shallow water too, it's only about 10 feet deep. This was the church, Mount Pleasant Church, and then the circle is where a home was. So in 2014, I did a dive there, I made a video, and Susan Hawkins Brown, if anybody knows, contacted me, and we, long story short, we became really good friends. Well, her grandmother is buried in that cemetery. Her grandmother owned the house that was there, and her family went to that church. And there was a school kind of combined with the church. So she was it was a very special place to her, and it became a very special place to me. Just hearing her stories and knowing someone that is attached to it. In 1990, she does not dive. In 1990, when the lake was down, it was completely exposed. You'll see a couple pictures, that's when it's from. She got to walk out there along with other descendants and family members and actually see the graves for the first time. She was from the Long family. You see the Long, L-O-N-G, Long gravesite there. So that was very special for her, and she appreciated that I was respectful of it. And you know, I've taken her out to the island so she could walk around, and then we did something very special. Her grandson Daniel is about, I think it was Jackson's age, 19 now. Where's a year younger? He's a diver. He started diving young, about 14, 15. And she always wanted him to go dive and see his great-grandmother's gravesite. That was something she was very close with her grandson. So we finally made it happen. And it was real special. Just showing you here, this is where it's at here. There's shore roads, you can kind of, Hollow Creek is where it's at. Alright, so this is the video. So, this is a video I made. I haven't released. I have a YouTube channel where I put videos from the last 12, 13 years of diving. This video is from when we dove with her grandson on this site, and it was kind of a very special day for all of us. Play here. A couple minutes long. So these are the pictures that she took when she got to go. So you can see the stones. They set them all up. The blue is from when they marked them with that special paper. That's why they're blue. I think there's around 20-some graves here. It was one of the few spots that they covered with concrete because they didn't want the bodies to come out, so you can see the concrete. And see how they're knocked down? That was knocked down by people. That's her family's lawn. So there's Daniel. I think he was 16. This was in 2019, or 2021, in November of 2021. So not long ago, a year and a half ago. Just a little intro here. Don't worry about not hearing what she can say. She's just commenting on. He had never dove from a boat like this in the lake, so he's a very good diver for his age. I was really impressed. In fact, I think this was his first back roll. He's natural. So a real special day, you know. Just funny how things come once again back full circle. You know, here the young man is visiting his great grandmother underneath doing something he loves, and I think it mostly is real special for Susan. All right, so Widespread Bridge. I could keep you here all night long talking about Widespread Bridge because we dive this thing all the time, and we're always discovering something new. I'm just going to really just talk only about a few artifacts that I have brought. There's the bridge. I wish they would have gone to the other side and taken a picture. It would have answered a lot of other questions. But we'll just dive in and find out. The artifacts I have are actually from the other side. So these are called piers, bridge piers. The bridge pier on the other side, it's kind of really the same. Your roadbed comes out elevated, and then you get into the actual bridge with the piers. It has, I don't even know what to call it. I've tried to search, and I call it an access tower. It was a wooden, kind of enclosed, maybe 4 by 5, I don't know, wooden tower that went up. You could crawl inside from the bottom, climb up the ladder, pop out the top on the roadbed. I think it was more for workers, something to give them access from down below. I don't know anything beyond that. It stood for almost 80 years. Well, actually, the bridge was built in 1911, so 90 years, almost 100 years that thing stood. When I first started diving the bridge, it was there. It was mostly intact, I remember. I don't have any videos of it. Over the years, it slowly started deteriorating, and then in the last year, year and a half, it finally collapsed on itself. The video you'll see coming up was about a year ago, and you can see that a lot of it, what it is it's the nails. The nails would nail in, would rot, and rust away in between, and then the boards would just fall. And eventually enough fell, and the structure collapsed in on itself. The artifacts we recovered were from the bottom down by the riverbed. The access door hatch was buried up to just the hinge. And we talked about it, and I said, I think we should recover that because really not a lot of people are down here at 140 feet diving around and they'll see the hinge. So we decided to recover that, and we're in the process of restoring it. Or saving it, I should say, not restoring it, saving it. And the way we kind of save it is we'll epoxy. I found epoxy works the best because it just encapsulates it. Everything that you bring up, especially from that deep, if it's metal, is going to deteriorate super rapidly and usually fall apart and crumble and disappear once it hits the oxygen. So if you don't somehow figure out how to save it, I've tried electrolysis on some things, but some stuff is just so far gone, you're better off just encapsulating it. So anyway, continuing on. So that's all I'm going to say about the Wise Ferry Bridge. We'll save that talk for another day because I've got so many videos, so much stuff on it, just insane. We love diving this. We can go deep, we can go shallow. John and Amanda and Jason here. Jason, they've been doing a lot of exploration out beyond the bridge. And finding a lot of unique things. So if you look on it, they post stuff on Facebook, all that. Sorry it's not the greatest photo, it's a photo. I took a photo of a photo, but this is what I was talking about, the access tower, and this is where the door was. This photo was taken by somebody else, I don't know when. It had to be probably in the 80s maybe early 90s, I'm not sure. And it kind of shows, you can see access door and what it was. It's the best thing I could find, really. So this is John and I. We're just coming over. This is the top of the pier, the concrete pier. We've started the northern side of the bridge. This is about, John, what is it, 110 here? I can't remember. 110? And it's actually pretty high because it's about 130, 135 right at the base, and then it immediately falls off. So here you can kind of see it. It will be a little bit better. So you can see it's already starting to collapse from the top, collapsed in on itself. You can start seeing the boards. So this would have been the outside, away from the bridge, and on the inside is where the person would climb up. As you can see on the one right side, it's just all already fallen out. So those boards back there, feel free to pick them up and touch them. I actually don't mess with the hinge, it's kind of frozen solid, it could break off, but so there's a little bit better. See, we're just kind of descending. There, when we reach the bottom. Sorry, it's not the best video work. Alright, that's me there. Anyway, so that's the artifacts that's there. I just wanted to. Alright. Wigger Family Cemetery, so I looked forever for this. I finally discovered its location about 2 years ago. This is the biggest cemetery in the lake. It's still an ongoing exploration. I don't really have any good video or anything to share. This is photos of the cemetery before, obviously, the lake was flooded. The iron fence is gone. That was taken out. And unfortunately, the way I found it is everything's kind of in a long pile, maybe 20 feet long. So I think they went in, took the headstones, and just made a pile with them. You can see there's a lot of stone. I can't remember how many. I think it was over 100 people, I think, were buried here. So the reason I know I found it, there's our buddy Joe Franklin. So this is from a book I have that lists all the cemeteries, who's in them. It was compiled by the county or the Lexington Water Company, who was part of building the dam with Mr. Murray, and they're part of the records for all the cemeteries. So if you look at Susan Wingard Henry, and you look at the dates, 1917 she died. Here's one video I do have to share with you. And this confirmed it. This is her headstone. Like I said, they were in a pile, so a lot of headstones were upside down. You know, I'm not one to go. And luckily, this was right there. I just wiped a little bit of the algae off. 1917. Boom. So I was very excited to find it. I've been looking for this Wingard Cemetery for a long time. Looking in the wrong place for a long time. And finally got some good intel from something I read in it. All right. To finish up, the stone house. So I mentioned the stone house before. It was built in the 1700s, likely the early 1700s. It's not the only one of its kind. There's one in Newbury, and then there's one somewhere else. I can't remember exactly where. Like I said, they were built as forts and trading posts. The one in the lake was used as a fort, not a fort, I'm sorry, used as a shelter for Indian attacks. And then it was later used as a home by the lockkeeper of the Dreher Dam. The Dreher Dam was just down the hill here. And then eventually it was abandoned, and it sat there until they came in and built the dam. They, there it is there. They removed the roof, they did remove the windows, and they removed the door. And I don't know what was inside. They cut down all the trees around it. And with some sort of structure attached to it, that's no longer there. It's a quarter mile from the towers, due west. It sits on an old hill. Here's an old picture. I love this picture. It's kind of a cool picture. You can see the train coming across the dam. Here's the river. It goes up in and comes through underneath the bypass core. I can't think of what it's called. It goes underneath, so they haven't flooded it yet. Over here is the hill, and the stone house is right there. That's a really old picture. Here's another cool set of pictures. This, it looks like they're starting to fill the lake. You can see this is where they bypassed it. So we'll zoom in on, so this is looking towards the lake, the Lexington side recreational area. And I'm not 100% sure, I think this is Jim's Hill. Jim, where's Jim? Raise your hand, Jim. Jim discovered that hill. We call it Jim's Hill. It's an excellent, it's a really cool site. It's either that or that one. I think it's this one. It's a really cool dive site. It's got a lot to offer. So we zoom in on, or here's this picture from the one from the bottom. So of course immediately I look over here, I see the stone house. There's the hill. There's the path. You can see it on the sonar coming down. And I know it's hard to see, but it's there. And then this is a lot of the construction equipment, the mills and everything else that they built. And, I've looked on sonar all over there. Any building is not there. You can see shapes and remnants of the earth where it was, but that was all taken out. I have tried to, got to zoom in there, but there it is. There it is on sonar. 12 by 12 building, 2-story, two chimneys, 2 fire spaces. All right, so we'll end here. This is a video. Really, pictures just don't do it justice. Just to preface this video, so we only really dive this a certain time of the year. When the lake starts turning over, it pushes up from the bottom. It usually happens near the middle end of September, and it lasts for about 2 to 3 weeks, where you get amazing viz down deep. It's almost like flying out of the clouds and into clear, and you can actually see the thermocline. You can put your hand up in it, and you could not see your hand. So that happens at a certain time of the year, and that's really when we dive is enjoy diving, because you can see also the bridge. We usually dive the bridge until we see that viz, and then we hit like the stone house and other places if we want to dive to the deep where we want to do viz. It's kind of how we do it. So this video was taken, it's the best viz I've ever had there. And the other diver was Jim and I dove it. So this is that video, and we'll end with this video. Coming down from the roof. Yeah. Jim makes his entry. For the second floor attic was removed. some. Yeah.
Hey Steve, quick question for you. The Wasbury Bridge, the picture, is the dam on the right side or the left side?
Right side.
Is it on the right? Okay.
The question was, on the Wasbury Bridge, is the dam on the right or the left?
So the river's flowing this way towards Columbia.
Okay.
South, north. It's actually more a little northwest, south, east. North side of the river, south side of the river.
Which side has collapsed?
It's up here off. It's going to be on the other side.
Oh, okay. On the Irma side.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Here, yeah.
So is that the black sign, the one that has the black?
The black is right in here. The 1911.
Yeah.
Right. So
That is right here in the middle. So right there.
now on the
I
right.
know where I was.
Oh yeah. Wow.
I'm going to jump in and say,
That's good.
I just don't remember which side.
another round.
Thank you.